Good afternoon, my Real News Midday TV family. Welcome back to the channel for another news update. And in the news this afternoon, woman found not guilty in stabbing death of common-law husband. The woman who was charged with the stabbing death of her common-law husband during a domestic dispute in Westmoreland 4 years ago was found not guilty in the Westmoreland Circuit Court. Monifa Cephas was freed of the murder charge on Wednesday. She was charged with the murder of 27-year-old Kemar Williams. It is reported that Williams, a labor of Prospect District in Frome, and his girlfriend of Tivoli Gardens, Kingston, got into a heated argument at their home in a section of Frome called Red Hills. It is further reported that Williams started to beat his girlfriend, who allegedly used a knife to stab him in the upper body. Non-citizens in the U.S. urged to quickly naturalize or regularize status. With uncertainty looming over the future of migration from Jamaica to the United States under the coming Donald Trump administration, immigration specialists are urging non-citizens to swiftly naturalize and regularize themselves. Erwin Clare, co-founder and the managing director of Caribbean Immigrant Services, says that now is the time for illegal immigrants as well as permanent residents to put themselves in the safest position possible.
If you're still a green card holder, now is the time to go out and apply for your citizenship, because we could also see that process change over time. If you were contemplating petitioning or filing for a family member or loved one, the time is now to do that. And those who are undocumented, the same thing applies for you too. If you have opportunity to regularize yourself within the opportunities that exist now, the time is now. And I also urge persons, it's imperative that you must have your documentation properly ready at all times. Know where to find your stuff. Have a surrogate understand where your documents are as well. Because we have to be in a very preparatory mode for a lot of unexpected. And these are things that we have to be cognizant of and aware of.
Meanwhile, immigration attorney Winston Tucker said Mr. Trump's campaign announcement to halt birthright citizenship is mostly noise. He said the rigid checks and the balances in the U.S. House make it difficult and unlikely that such a policy will come into force. Mr. Tucker said such a move will need to be extremely measured, as it would have grave implications on the U.S. economy, which he anticipates the president-elect will take into consideration.
That is impossible. They spoke about that previously. This goes back to the point raised earlier on, that this whole issue is about citizenship and those who can vote. We ought to realize that Constitution protects the legal permanent residents or the naturalized citizen, the child who derived citizenship through parents who were illegal immigrants at any point in time. And for this or any administration to get that done, they're going to need 2/3 of the Senate, and that's not possible in this lifetime. And going forward with the agenda that this administration has set in terms of addressing inflation, giving trillions of dollars of tax break to the rich and famous, you're not going to have enough money around to address these issues.
2 men facing murder and illegal gun charges in St. Elizabeth. The 2 men caught with 2 illegal firearms and several rounds of ammunition at a bar in Gutters, St. Elizabeth, earlier this month, have been charged with murder. Sean Reed, a 35-year-old chef, otherwise called Soji, and a 30-year-old Romano Smile, an electrician, both of Knockpatrick, Manchester, were charged on Thursday for the October 17 shooting death of 62-year-old Agri Atkinson at Magotty in the parish. Superintendent Coleridge Minto, head of the St. Elizabeth Police, said the men are facing additional charges. Both of them were charged with the offenses of murder, conspiracy, robbery with aggravation, using a firearm to commit a felony, possession of prohibited weapon, unauthorized possession of ammunition, he noted. Superintendent Minto said 2 other suspects are also being pursued and will be named at an appropriate time as persons of interest. It is reported that on November 1, the police were on operation in Gutters when Reed and Smile were seen in a Nissan AD wagon parked in front of a bar. They reportedly searched a brown bag seen in the console of the vehicle, and the 2 firearms were found. Both men were subsequently charged. Justice delayed and denied. A grand case of justice delayed being justice denied is how attorney Leonard Green, who represented Keith Clark's family, described the freeing of 3 soldiers who have been on trial since May for the murder of the accountant. Lance Corporals Greg Tinglin, Odell Buckley, and the Private Arnold Henry were freed on Thursday morning after Justice Dale Palmer ruled that they had no case to answer. Justice Palmer freed the soldiers on the basis that the evidence as it relates to identification is below the standard for him to call upon the defense to answer. Last month, one of the prosecution's witnesses told the court that the logbooks pertaining to the distribution of guns and ammunition at the Jamaica Defense Force and the then record keeper are missing. Mr. Green says the case crumbled because of the absence of evidence to connect the soldiers to the actual killing of Mr. Clark.
Essentially, they certainly would not give evidence against their colleagues, but what it ends up as is a failure to make the evidence available. It's simply the nexus between the numbers, because the soldiers were identified by numbers, and the name is said to have been in a book, a document, which is not available. 14 years ago, that this matter came before the court, and it is really a grand case of justice delayed being justice denied.
In the meantime, Mr. Green said the Clarks are disappointed but resolute that they provided truthful evidence. He said the family is hoping that there can be some level of compensation for the loss that they suffered. Defense attorney Linton Gordon, who represented Private Arnold Henry, said he is hoping the civil case in the Supreme Court will proceed expeditiously and end favorably for the Clarks.
The case was put on hold pending the criminal matter, which is a ruling in the court that you ought not to proceed to conclusion with a criminal matter. It's a civil matter pending a criminal matter. So now that the criminal matter is out of the way, it is our hope. We are not in the civil matter, so we cannot comment on the credibility and the reliability. All I can say is that it ought to go forward now and hopefully to a conclusion to the satisfaction of Mrs. Clark.
Sentencing pushed back to December 2 for Daniel Rosa killer. Dental assistant Coyote Seychelles, who last month pleaded guilty to the stabbing death of 8-year-old Daniel Rowe in June last year, on Thursday had her sentencing postponed to December 2. The sentencing, which was slated for Thursday afternoon, was pushed back due to the unavailability of a medical report. The gloom-looking child killer last month pleaded guilty to the murder of the primary school student, a killing that rocked the nation. The 32-year-old, who was dressed in full black, pleaded guilty to murder and the child stealing. The grade 2 student of Brayton Primary and Infant School in St. Catherine was abducted on June 8 last year from her school. The child was seen later that day with her throat slashed on Roosevelt Avenue in St. Andrew. She was rushed to Bustamante Hospital for Children, where she died 2 days later. The post-mortem report revealed the child died from an incised wound to the neck. Investigations by the police led to Seychelles being arrested on August 11 last year. She was subsequently charged with murder. Attorney at law Pierre Rogers and Donovan Collins are representing Seychelles. Guys, thank you for watching. See you this evening at 6 p.m. for another news update.